Well, that's an exaggeration, and not an exaggeration, but that's more like a recognition that some people know that in some parts of your hand there's not as much muscles as compared to here when you're doing this pose where when your hand is facing upwards. That there's going to be a lot of muscles here that is tensing up the hand that to do this. This has to bump out, and um, when you're doing this pose as well, this is where you expose quite a lot of the bones, and so that's why sometimes you can see this shape, um, but that's going really in depth, and I don't really want to. And ultimately, you can still, when it comes to it being a sketch, you can still do the shape where you have a bump up and bottom, and you still like go like I understand it. Just make sure, just take note sometimes when people are doing different hand motions. Uh, they might draw the forearm very very differently. So here's another bumpy, and then now down to your hand. And I've made my first mistake, which is that the left and right is kind of not the same. So this is longer, this is not. Um, the deltoids is not as long. Well, I'll do it again. So it comes down to here, and when I say it's like, oh, it's not as long as the other one, and it's like, oh, I can spot my own mistakes. Everyone can spot the same mistake, the mistake that I've just made, um, because I solely believe that everyone had like at this point has seen enough anime to know what looks right and what looks wrong. Okay. Um, I'll go over hands in like sketching hands, um, if I have time today. Ultimately, I feel like everyone sort of knows how to do hands. Actually, no, maybe some of you don't, but um, I'll go through it later on. I mean, most of you could draw hands. Just takes a while. Okay, so then I know that you know around here is about hitting my hip bone, and then here's about mid thigh. So I go like, here's my little skirt. So the female body people draw in a lot of different ways. Some people still like when it comes down to the rib cage is when it the sort of what do you call it, the hourglass figure is actually from sort of like this would be sort of where your rib cage is, and then this is kind of like where your hip bone is gonna like bump out, and then so it's kind of like it's the rib cage is where the indicator where the hourglass narrows down. Some people still draws it like still very very like it doesn't bump out until like after the first like side muscle here, but it's anime, and you need to leave yourself enough space so that your hips reach shoulder width, and so it's better to start a little bit earlier, I suppose. um, you can do this and then go like extremely wide like Kim Kardashian, like that amount of like gradient immediately, but it's not as natural, and in terms of a sketch it's not as easy to understand. So let me just do this. So about wait, so here's about like this width. I want to maybe not so much because my hand is actually going out, so maybe around here.
means like this is what you'll see. Two circles that you'll see. Two bloody red circles. And then you know that it depends. If you're like a girl who likes the man spread, you can draw it, that. But then let's say that she's a very she sits with her knees together. Let's say that her knees are together. And let's say that this is eye level, this is your horizon. And it means that like